Today we are climbing Mephisto's Waltz, which is in the Black Chasm of the Catskill Mountains, a region of New York, not too far away from New York City and the Gunks. This is I'd say WI5 plus route, and we're going to watch the whole thing, and we're just going to talk about what's going on. There's a little cone at the start of the route. I'm making my way up. There's some kind of snice at the top, which means that on any kind of ledge like that, snow tends to accumulate and ice will build on top of it, so those sticks are always kind of crummy. It's kind of a funny position where I'm transitioning from essentially cresting a bulge to standing up into a vertical section. The ice here is pretty chandeliered and tricky. I don't think anyone's actually been up this route so far this season. That looks like a kicked out step that my left tool is in, but I think someone might have made it to this position and then backed off. So the rest of the route doesn't really have any evidence of climbing so far. I'm standing up, stepping on those cauliflowers. And when swinging into chandeliered ice like this, it's always difficult to know what to trust. So, I don't know, I'm a bit of a destructive climber. I'm always breaking things to make sure I'm confident that every stick I have is a good one. I can get far enough back there that I'm a little bit more trusting than the stuff on the outside. Had a little bit of a foot slide there, but I made sure it was good before standing up on it. Now, here I'm clearing out all these icicles because I'm going to be traversing over to the right to avoid the mushrooms above. In retrospect, I should have placed a screw here for my follower as I'm starting a traverse. But at the time, I made a mistake and decided to keep climbing without a screw because the terrain was...
Oh, that clocked me in the fucking dome.
Well, the terrain was a little treacherous, I suppose. But the feet were really good and I was pretty much on a little ledge. Here I finally put a screw in. And even though it's not too far away from the section I just mentioned, I should have put one in. Coupled with this extender, it's a little too far right to give a follower a nice top rope. This is pretty fun climbing though. Okay. Now I'm headed over to this column on the right side of the flow to bypass the medusas above. Mushrooms, medusas, jellyfish, these are all kind of words for the same thing. Those big blobby features that have icicles hanging off of them. gazing up and around at the root. So that I know what I'm getting into. It's important to really make sure you're placing the tool across your chest when you ever shoulder a tool. It decreases the chances of that thing just popping off. Now we're kind of in an actual section of like more consistent climbing. And you'll notice that I'm trying to keep my tools staggered, especially in vertical sections, because it helps reduce the amount of swings that you take, which in ice climbing everything's a endurance game, so less movement you can do, the better. Here I'm moving my foot a lot, obviously, but I'm searching for something that I feel good about, because I always want to have confident feet. It's easy to get your tools unstaggered or in the same zone when you're cresting bulges, but that's always a hazard because bulges are often prone to dinner plating, and if you end up putting your both tools in kind of the same zone on a bulge, it's possible for you to create a dinner plate so large with your second stick that it actually pops your first stick off. And that's not good. Notice I'm doing a lot of shaking out. These are always funny moments, kind of transitioning from a straight up kind of fashion to... Ooh!
I almost dropped my tool.
Oh god. That would have been dumb. Some people have asked about climbing with tethers. They're great for long routes where you're out all day, and if you drop the tool, it would be a big problem and you'd have to turn around. But for a single pitch climb like this, it's really a lot more trouble than it's worth. Oh my god. The 360 camera smacking into things, knocking things down. It's pretty cool to explore back here.
Wow, I can go back through here. Yeah. That's kind of sick.
I'm gonna have to make my way out of this little window back onto the face of the climb, so I knocked out all those icicles. I'm placing this screw on a blob pretty deep in the window. Ultimately, this is going to create a little bit of rope drag issue. Well, not so much rope drag, but it is going to route the rope in a funny way that's going to end up catching on a lot of little icicles and stuff. I'm extending it, but could have used some more extension probably. Ultimately, I don't know if that was such a good piece. The ice was good. It was like a solid screw, but... And like, it was essentially a freebie because I was on such a solid stance. But it might have been better to place something out on the front of this column. Although the ice is pretty chandeliered, so that blob back there is pretty solid. This ice out here is a lot harder to place screws into. Either way, I don't love to place screws when I'm hanging from a steep section, so I'm always looking for restful stances to place pieces of protection in. One funny debate I'm often having about steep and featured ice like this is whether or not it's more strenuous to climb on cauliflowers or on smooth, featureless ice. Considering cauliflowers often give you a full platform to stand on and rest your heel, while smoother ice requires you to be fully engaged on your front point. Ultimately, I think the benefit of the cauliflower stance is negated by the difficulty of maintaining proper steep ice form and the efficiency that that position brings. And here you can see the rope is getting stuck on all these little ice features. I'm smacking around a little bit on these chandeliers just to kind of get an idea of how strong all those little features are, how much I can trust them. Featured ice like this can be a little challenging because it's hard to get into the standard ice climbing groove when you got all these little cauliflowers and stuff. It can be hard to keep that classic A-frame position where you're trying to keep your legs level, a little wider than shoulder width apart, tools matched in front of you, not matched, but kind of centered between your feet, staggered. There, I'm using my front point to get the rope off that little icicle. But yeah, the cauliflowers add a lot of complication to it. You end up not having the ability to swing exactly where you want, so you end up working around it. It can make your body positions a little awkward or unbalanced. You might feel like you're going to barn door a little bit. And that's one of the things that differentiates truly vertical ice from ice that's almost vertical but not quite. As soon as the ice gets truly vertical, it starts to form in this kind of chandeliered, icicle-y kind of way. Whereas ice that's even like slightly under vertical, like 85 degrees, ends up forming in a lot more of an intuitive pattern that's more uniform and easy to climb. Now you can kind of see how that screw in the window is a bit of a mistake, where that rope is now wrapping around that column. It would have made sense for me to just walk to the face of the column and place my first screw down low, still while I have my feet on the ground, nice and easy. Aiming your front point on this kind of chandeliered ice can be a little challenging, considering some of these icicles are so small that they're sure to blow apart if you were to strike it directly with your front point. Taking lots of opportunities to swing out, to shake out my arms well ahead of the pump. If you shouldn't be waiting to, or at least I never try to wait until I'm feeling the pump. I'm always trying to stave it off because I know it's the whole name of the game is just mitigating pump. This is a nice position to be in. Got a nice wide stance, and my arms are somewhat in front of me, allowing me to take a little bit of the edge off of the verticality of this route. This is actually something I end up doing quite a lot. I'll start a screw, and once it bites and I have a few turns in, I'll shake out a little bit. So I'm not necessarily placing the whole screw and clipping it in one complete motion. Here I'm totally hanging on my top arm. You could see that that top arm was completely outstretched. That allows the strain to come off my muscles and be on my skeleton. It's pretty challenging ice, and it hasn't been climbed before, so having to do a lot of clearing to make my sticks suitable. Here I'm sizing up this next mushroom up here. That is going to send me either right or left. I'm going to go left, as the way to the right seemed a little bit more chandeliered and complex. It's going to require a little bit more farming. So, because I am going to traverse a little bit to the left, I've actually matched my sticks to allow me to start transitioning further left. When knocking down a big icicle like that, the big tip is to not look at it. As soon as when you're smacking something like that, point your face down, present your helmet to it, and let the icicle hit your helmet and not your face. Cool, and since I'm working my way into a slightly overhung zone, clearing those icicles is going to help me out a lot when I am kicking into that area and looking for footholds. Wow, look at that crack right there. That actually freaked me out a little bit when I saw it. Weather had been really nice leading up to this week. And so I didn't have too much concern about stability on this pillar, but a crack like that is always something to factor into your decision making. Placing another screw, as this is going to be the crux of the root. Heading through this little mushroom above me right there. Here I'm about to swing my left arm to be about the same level as my right arm, so that I can give my right arm a little bit of a break. Normally I don't like to have my tools in the same level, but in this scenario, matching hands on my right tool would have put me in a little bit of an awkward position. Although the downside of that is that a kicked out foot usually puts your feet closer to the wall than your hands and makes you effectively overhung. Nice. Thankfully there's a lot to just hook onto with these cauliflowered features. And that's pretty much that for the cruxy little section up there.
Fuck yeah.
Gonna hug this icicle, take a nice little break. Place a screw because I'm in a nice stance.
Ooh-wee.
Alright, now I'm pretty close to the top. This is still a little chandeliered up here, but I can see that the grade or the steepness backs off just a little bit in about a body length. So now it's just a matter of keeping it calm and collected to the top. But you can see those swings just go right through that chandeliered garbage. Resting on a completely stretched out arm. And swing in there. Nice matched feet. Staggered tools. Yeah, anytime you can keep those feet at about the same level so that when you stand up, your hand on your lower tool is chest height, above your sternum, chest height. That's like a nice place to be. That feels really solid. That's not too strenuous to pull it on. And it lets you reach up really high and swing tall with your other tool. Here, because the angle of the ice has diminished a little bit, we're starting to see some of that poor quality ice that tends to build up on lower angle terrain. Whew. A little skating action from that one. And here I lifted my foot up a little bit too quick there on the left side. I think because I just wanted to get away from that crummy ice. But in an ideal world, you keep your feet level. Just like that. One last screw right before the final bulge, just to keep things chill. Nice. This is one of my favorite routes in the Catskills. It's a full 35 meters. It's very steep. It always forms pretty funky and fun. It's one of the first kind of like hard, interesting routes that I got into, and so it's always a pleasure to repeat it.